All right, happy Sabbath. Today is April 15. April 15, 2017. We're almost at the end of Daniel 11, verse 1 to 39. You know, we're getting there. It's becoming one of our longer studies here, but it's okay because there's so much information in Daniel 11 that fulfills, the end, which is Daniel 11 verse 40 to 45, is declared by the beginning, which is Daniel 11 verse 1 to 39. 1 to 39 fills in all the details that need to make it to come to a completion, so we will understand the whole book of Daniel. And the book of Daniel 11. And the Daniel 11 is the prophecies, the last vision of Daniel, right? We know that's the last vision of Daniel. It's got to be important. We know it's got to be important. Okay, we'll continue, and we'll go to, let's see, let me go to our slide that we ended up with last week. All right, where did we end last week? All right, it's taking. Okay, here we go. Oh, I have to add a new background to this, a black background, so we will see a little line. I have to change that in the future. Okay. All right. We ended up we need to summarize here Daniel 11 verse 24 through 27. All right. Daniel 11 verse 24. And he shall enter peaceably, even upon the fattest places of the province. And he shall do that which the fathers have not done, nor his fathers' fathers. He shall scatter among them the prey, and spoil and riches. Yea, and he shall forecast his devices against the strongholds, even for a time. So we know here that he that enters peaceably is who? Who is it that enters peaceably? Is the 45th president, okay? He enters peaceably. But he's going to go into a war here. And this war, he's going to lose, right? So when he loses, he's going to have to make a peace treaty. But after that peace treaty, he's going to have to recover. And so the U.S. and the U.S. economic and military conditions has to be restored. And how is he going to restore it? Through treaties, through the art of the deal, right? The art of the deal. He's going to make treaties so that he will restore. And during that time is when the papacy will come into the picture and exalt himself, right? We know that, right? When the papacy comes in and exalts himself, the papacy is going to help the United States come back to recover its strength militarily and economically, right? Because the next thing that he's going to have to do is go against war again, against Russia again, all right? And eventually, the papacy will have to ride the back of the United States to bring in the Sunday law, right? So when America loses here, wow, papacy is, you realize that the papacy has to prop up America again. Now prop up America this time, okay? So because America will have to forecast the devices from a stronghold, even for a time. Okay, so that's when it's going to have to start changing the Constitution so he can make a Sunday law. All right, verse 25. And he shall stir up the power and his courage against the king of the south with a great army. And the king of the south shall be stirred up to battle with a very great and mighty army. But he shall not stand, for they shall forecast devices against him. Okay, so now, all right, let's see. That was previously, that was verse 24. Now we go to verse 25 here. We know now the king of the north, which is America, is going to go to war against the king of the south. We know that's the battle of Panium. But there's another battle that is also describing. It's the battle of Actium, right? Who does Rome go to war at the battle of Actium? Mark Antony and Cleopatra, right? And they were defeated. So Egypt was defeated at the battle of Actium. The king of the south was defeated at the battle of Actium. And the battle of Actium falls right together with the battle of Panium, right? So the king of the south, Russia, is defeated, right, by America. And that's typified by the battle of Actium and also the battle of Panium, right? Now, verse 26. Yea, they that feed of the portion of his meat shall destroy him, and his army shall overflow, and many shall fall down slain. So, those who feed of the portion of his meat, who are those? The allies of Russia. Allies of Russia will desert him, right? We know these are like the Huns. The Huns are defeated. Eventually, the Huns were defeated at the Battle of Pannonia and absorbed into southern Russia, right? Okay. So we know this, Russia is defeated. Russia is defeated here. Okay. Russia no longer becomes the king of the south. Okay. Now, and both these, so when it no longer becomes the king of the south, now it will, the United States will forecast its devices even for a time. A time is 360 days prophetically, because it's 1 year. 1 year is 360 days, and 360 days is like 1 year. Until a time, so until the Sunday law. Because this is at the midnight cry, is when United States makes a Sunday law. That's an image of the beast. And that image is how many cubits high? How many cubits high is that? 60 cubits high. And what's the width of that according to Daniel 3 verse 1? 6 cubits. So 60 cubits high times 66 cubits wide. So 60 times 6 is 360. So that's where we got this. So that's why the image of the beast here is 360. 360 is also the time. It's set up here and it's fully realized you got to worship here, because that's the Sunday law. The image of the beast is set up here. And the definition of the image of the beast is a church and state unlawful marriage, where the church controls the relationship, right? You got to make sure you understand that, okay? That starts at midnight cry, right? And the 360 is the time until prophetic time, right? And it also is happens to be the dimensions of this statue, right? The image of the beast.
So Mark Antony and Cleopatra defeated by
Octavius, right? Octavius defeated, right? Octavius is he becomes the emperor. He becomes emperor what? What's the name of the emperor? Augustus Caesar, right? Yeah. Okay. Now verse 27. So verse 27. And both these kings' hearts shall be to do mischief, and they shall speak lies at one table, but it shall not prosper, for yet the end shall be at the time appointed. Right? So what is he going to do? They're going to join hands together. They're going to sit at the table, eat, and speak lies to each other. Right? When they do that? They do it here. They do it here. Right? They have a peace treaty here. And right away, America goes and make allies with other countries wanting to go back at the king of the south, right? So they're sitting at a table making peace treaties when right away they're going to break it, okay? Because they're speaking lies with each other. That's verse 27.
also Russia would have a treaty too.
Yeah, with Russia and America makes treaty right here, right? This war is going to end with a treaty also, okay? But then there's going to be all kinds of treaties because there's going to be threefold unions, right? The threefold union is going to happen also at the Sunday Law, right? All these treaties are going to end, all right, even for a time, right? This because Russia falls right here. Just remember, Russia is gone at midnight cry. Midnight cry. Okay, let's see. Okay, this is where it ended last week. 10:11, verse 28. So we continue now. Then he shall return into his land with great riches, and his heart shall be against the holy covenant, and he shall do exploits, and return to his own land. All right. Wow, what does this mean? Look at it. He shall return into his land, and then what? He returned into his land. There's two returnings into the land here. For some reason, there's two returnings into the land. What does this mean? Okay, here's this Uriah Smith. Two returnings from foreign conquests are here brought to view. The first after the events narrated in verses 26 and 27. The second after his power had indignation against the Holy Covenant and performed exploits. So here, he returned into his land with great riches. All right, that is right after he has conquered Egypt. Now Egypt is very rich, so now he comes back with all the riches from Egypt, right? All right, and the next time he's going to come back again, it's going to be against Israel, right? So the first time he comes back to his land with great riches after conquering Egypt, right? Mark Antony. The first was fulfilled with the return of Caesar after his expedition against Egypt and Antony. He returned to Rome with abundant order and riches. For, says Prideaux, at this time such vast riches were brought to Rome from Egypt on the reducing of that country, and the return of Octavianus, which is Caesar, right? And his army from thence, that the value of money fell 1/2, and the prices of provisions and all vendible wares were doubled thereon. So what happens? They had so much money, surplus money, that there was a deflation. Right? So who is this talking about? Is this talking about America or the papacy? Okay. Caesar celebrated his victories and his 3 days triumph, a triumph which Cleopatra herself would have graced as one of the royal captives, and had she not artfully caused her to be bitten by a fatal asp. Where's the asp? I think the asp was here somewhere. I think the asp was here. Okay, but this is anyway. That's Cleopatra. Somebody, a sculptor. This sculpture is very beautiful. You know, I don't know if you know this sculpture here, but it just so happened that this sculpture was sculptured by a woman. It's in America here somewhere. It's a famous American sculptor, and she's a black lady, very young, still very young, but she went and studied sculpture in Paris. Right? Anyway, I just looked at this. I go, wow, this is so beautiful. Where is this? Anyway, I went back and looked at the history of this sculpture. But anyway, who is the king of the north that became very rich then? Wait a minute. America is losing its power. America is going to get poor. America is going to get hit by Islam. America, is this going to be America? Wait a minute. You know what? This has to be talking about the papacy, right? It's about the papacy. The papacy now, when America starts giving the Sunday law, what happens now? The papacy, which received its seat in 1929, when it received its seat at the Vatican in 1929, it got its seat from the Italians. Then it got its power from the lamb-like beast in 1989, right? Right, it got its military power to go and conquer Russia and USSR. And now at the Sunday law, the United States is going to make a Sunday law, right? So now the papacy will have received its dominion. So now the papacy is restored its power, right? Has now, the deadly wound is completely healed now, right? So now the papacy can return to his country with riches, okay? But remember, there are two riches. There are two returnings, right? So we can see that this must symbolize the papacy. But then now we see there's another returning, because we're talking about the king of the north. And the king of the north can be either the papacy, but the king of the north can also be the army of the papacy, which is America. The next great enterprise of the Romans after the overthrow of Egypt was the expedition against Judea and the capture and destruction of Jerusalem. The Holy Covenant is doubtless the covenant which God has maintained with his people under different forms in different ages of the world, that is, with all believers in him. The Jews rejected Christ, and according to the prophecy that all would not hear, that prophecy should be cut off. They were destroyed out of their own land and scattered to every nation under heaven. So when was this? When did the Romans come, destroy Jerusalem and the temple, and scatter the Jews into all parts of their kingdom? When was that? 70 AD, right? 70 AD. And so what happened? They returned to their land, right, as victors at that time, right? So this is the returning to their land. So this returning to this land is after they have gone up against the Holy Covenant. They have gone up against Israel and shall do exploits and burn the whole city down and burn the temple down. So they defeated the country and the church. So does the United States fall down when it actually passes the Sunday law? The first time it passes Sunday laws is actually at the midnight cry. What happens also at the midnight cry? The church now starts keeping Sunday. Right? Yeah. It starts keeping it too. That's when it's going to eventually will close its probation at the Sunday law, right? Okay, so now we'll put that into this timeline. We have it filled until 27. Now we're going to do verse 28. Then shall he return. There's going to be two returnings. All right. All right. There's going to be two returnings. Right. The U.S. will return and set up the Sunday law, which is followed by, right. The Sunday law starts here. What happens if you perform national apostasy by setting up a Sunday law? National apostasy will always follow by, what does Ellen White say? National ruin. National apostasy will always follow national ruin. So America is gonna go down, but does it? Right? It's eventually go down at. This is when it returns, right? It returns. This is the arch of Titus when it returns to Rome. So the returnings as if it ends up at the Sunday law. There's two returnings that ends up in the Sunday law. America sets up the Sunday law here and starts persecuting God's people, and it starts shutting its door, right? No, sorry, I got to go back. All right, and the papacy now will return now. The papacy will also, this is the deadly wound for the papacy will start to be healed. Because when the Sunday law is completely, is given by the United States here, the deadly wound is completely healed, right? So verse 28, we know that's at the Sunday law, right? Okay, America will start making Sunday laws. So America will start going down. But the papacy, its wound has been healed. So it's going to return, and it's going to go with riches It's going to be rich. Okay. Now we go verse 29. At the time appointed he shall return and come toward the south, but it shall not be as the former or as the latter. Okay, but now he is now going to go against the south. All right, but it's not as if he was conquering Egypt or conquering Israel. Right? It's going to be a different returning. He's going to go against the south. Wait a minute. Then isn't Russia already destroyed? Isn't Russia is already at the time appointed? Is probably the prophetic time of verse 24, which has been previously mentioned. It closed as already shown in AD 330. Okay, so the close of time is that 360 years. Start with the Battle of Actium. 360 years from 31 BC up until 330 AD, all right, is 360 years, at which time this power was to return and come again toward the south, but not as the former occasion when it went into Egypt, nor as the latter when it went into Judea. Those were expeditions which resulted in conquest and glory. This one led to demoralization and ruin. Okay, the removal of the seat of the empire to Constantinople was the signal for the downfall of the empire. Rome then lost its prestige. The Western division was exposed to incursion by foreign enemies. Right? What happened in 330 AD? What did Constantine do? He divided the kingdom into two, right? And then what did he do? He removed the capital from Rome to Constantinople. Constantinople is, where is Constantinople now? It's in Istanbul, Turkey, right? Okay. So he moved it towards Istanbul, Turkey. This one led to the demoralization. The removal of the seat of empire to Constantinople was the signal for the downfall of the empire. Rome then lost its prestige. The Western division was exposed to incursion of foreign enemies. On the death of Constantine, the Roman Empire was divided into three parts: Constantius, Constantine II, and Constans, his three children. Constantine II and Constans quarreled, and Constans became victor and gained the supremacy of the whole West. He was soon slain by one of his commanders, who in turn was shortly after defeated by the surviving emperor, and despair ended his own days in 353 AD. The barbarians of the north now began their incursions and extended their conquest till the imperial power of the west expired in 476 AD. Right? So what happened is that they divided the kingdom into two. And because of that, it actually made them weaker. Right? They thought it was going to help them, but it turned out that it actually caused them to become weaker. He thought that he was going to be able to fight the barbarians better, but it turned out that was not the case. Right? It made them weaker. So it's not like he went towards the south, he moved his kingdom towards the south, but it was not as a victor. Right? Okay. Daniel 11 verse 29. At the time appointed he shall return and come toward the south, but it shall not be as the former or as the latter. This, right? It was not as if he went to Egypt and he went to Judea and won and come back as a victor. This time he lost his kingdom. He had to divide it up, and eventually the kingdom was lost to the barbarians. The western part was lost to the barbarians. What happened? He divided the kingdom into two, right? The Roman Empire was divided into two. Right, sorry. Roman Empire divided into two. And the capital was once in Rome here, but then it was transferred to Constantinople. It's not as if it's the south, really. I guess maybe just a little bit south, but it's toward the south.
It's still Rome?
This is Western Rome, this is Eastern Rome. This becomes Byzantine Empire, and this becomes the Western Roman Empire. Holy Roman Empire, right?
It's still Rome.
They're still all Catholic, Because this becomes the Holy Roman Empire, this becomes the Byzantine Empire. Constantine moved here, right? But they were constantly being attacked by the barbarians, right? The barbarians constantly attacked them, right? It made it easy actually for them, right? Because this area was vacated. And who came up to power in this area now? The Bishop of Rome now. The Bishop of Rome now came up here and became the popes. All the popes became strong, and from this time on, right, ruled with supremacy. Okay, all right. So let's see. Let's put this. Verse 29. So he is coming towards the south, right? How is it that he's coming towards the south? Wait a minute. The south. I thought we were already seeing that the south here, the king of the south is Russia. Russia is already defeated here, but now the king of the north is going to go against the king of the south. Right? Now we see that story in the Six Syrian War. The Six Syrian War is when Antiochus Epiphanes, he's the king of the north, he decides he's going to attack to the king of the south. He's going to attack the Ptolemy the Sixth, right? When he goes down there, Rome says to him, you know, you cannot go to Egypt, because we get our grain from Egypt, and if you attack Egypt, we will lose our grain supply. So now Rome sends one of its advisors down, one of its I guess what do you call that? One of his leaders, right? And he goes to Antiochus and he draws a line in the sand. Here's that line in the sand, right? You better not pass this line in the sand, right? Because we, Rome, will tell you what to do, right? So the king of the north is not allowed to go against the king of the south. And that's the Six Syrian War. He wanted to go and attack the king of the south, but he was not allowed to do so by Rome. So what does that mean now? Now America has passed the Sunday law here, and now that the king of the south, Russia, is gone, who's the new king of the north? Who's the new king of the south? Who's the new king of the south now? United Nations, right? United Nations. And the U.S. is in a kind of like a competition with the United Nations. But what the papacy says, no, I am going to be the king, the ruler of this threefold union between the papacy, the United States, and the United Nations. I'm going to be the leader, right? And the United States cannot be the world ruler now, right? Yeah, it's going to be the papacy now. So the United States is no longer allowed to do what it wants, and it's now subject to what the papacy now says, right? Okay, so we'll see here. That's verse 29. America goes down, and eventually America is gone. The sixth kingdom of prophecy. Prophetically, America is finished at the Sunday law, right? America down, right? Prophetically, because now is the time of the seventh kingdom. The seventh kingdom is the United Nations. So United Nations rise, right? United Nations rise. So we see as one goes down, the other one is rising, right? This is the rise of the king of the south. Now this king of the south is a new manifestation of satanic power. The king of the south is a manifestation of satanic power, because the United Nations becoming the ruler, becoming the leader now, is a new manifestation of satanic power. Okay, where did we see that previously the king of the south became the new manifestation of satanic power. Where did we see that? At the French Revolution, right? What happened at the French Revolution? France became the new manifestation of the satanic power. Okay, Ellen White says that it is atheism and what? It's Egypt and Sodom. It's licentiousness and atheism. That's the new manifestation of satanic power, and it's France, and it's communism, right? It's basic communism, but it's atheism. But then the king of atheism at that time was France. But when France went back to become a Christian country, it no longer became atheist. Which country became the king of the atheistic countries? Russia. Russia became the communist country, so it became the king of the south. But now that Russia is down over here, who becomes the new manifestation of satanic power? Is the United Nations now. All right. So we see that now the United Nations goes up, United States goes down. All right. Okay. So we're going to do a little bit of the summary of the Syrian Wars. Okay, we see that this slide is so busy. Okay, but it was from before. We have the Syrian Wars here. This is the Second Syrian War, the Third Syrian War, the Fourth Syrian War, and the Fifth Syrian War. Okay? The First Syrian War is when the king of the south defeats the king of the north. Right? During the French Revolution. Now this is the story of the French Revolution right here. Okay? The French Revolution, the king of the south is defeated. When is the king of the south, when does the king of the south defeat the king of the north? We know it's when Robespierre, okay, this is the First Syrian War, Robespierre actually guillotines Marie Antoinette and Louis XVI, right? Because they represent the feudal system that was the system that is used by the papacy to control the masses, right? The feudal system, right? That system was overthrown by Robespierre in the French Revolution by guillotining Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette, okay? So that dragon power that gave the power to the papacy is now cut down, right? By the beheading of Louis XVI, right? And at the Battle of Panium, Russia loses, right? But at the Six Syrian War, a new manifestation of that power now rises again. So here, the feudal system is taken down. What do you think happens here? If the feudal system is taken down, here in the beginning, what do you think happens here? The feudal system will rise up again, right? Because now the feudal system is the system that is used by the papacy to control the world. Is now going to rise up again. We'll do that a little bit later again. But now we see the Sixth Syrian War. The Second Syrian War is the Treaty of Tolentino. All right, the Treaty of Tolentino, and General Dufault is killed here. All right. The Third Syrian War is when the papacy is dealt its deadly wound. All right, dealt its deadly wound by Napoleon Bonaparte, and his general is General Berthier. Right, and the Fourth Syrian War is the Raphia War. That's at midnight, and the Panim War is at midnight cry. All these details fill in what is happening of Daniel in Daniel 11. All right, all these details we never knew before until we started studying Daniel 11. Right? Okay. So this is the Six Syrian Wars, the line in the sand, when America is no longer allowed to become the superpower, right? Because now the head of the union is now, the threefold is now the papacy, right? Rome will dictate to America what America will do. Okay. All right. So if that's the beginning, so let's see, where am I going now? So that's the beginning. We see the French Revolution is tied with all the stories here of the rise of America. We're going to have to see that the rise of America has something to do with, with the Revelation, Daniel 11. Daniel 11, the presidents of the United States, we can see their correlation of what happens in Daniel 11 through studying the presidents of the United States. Now, this is a trick question. Who's the first president of the United States? Well, it depends, right? You don't want to answer right away. It depends on which constitution are you talking about, okay? It depends on which constitution you're talking about. Remember the Continental Congress? The Continental Congress was the Congress that was set up to fight against the British, right? Fight against the British. They had eight different chairmen. Okay, look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right? 1774 to 1781. Amazing thing that this Peyton Randolph, he was chairman twice. Right? And John Hancock, we know John Hancock. John Jay, he's a Supreme Court, right? Wasn't he the Supreme Court judge? Right? And then Samuel Huntington. Right? He's number 8. From the Continental Congress, then what did they have? They changed to now they have the Articles of Confederation. And this Article of Confederation, they will have 10 presidents. Now they're called 10 presidents, right? But you notice, look at this, that Samuel Huntington is actually the first president of the U.S. Congress under the Articles of Confederation. This Articles of Confederation is actually kind of like the first constitution, right? But it's not the U.S. Constitution. So you will see that there's actually 8 chairmen here, but this 8th chairman here is the 8th one is the first one of the 10th. Okay? So really you have 7, and this 8th one is this first here. So you have 7 and you have 10. Okay? Because this one is here too. Because this overlaps. Right? In 1781, Samuel Huntington overlaps. All right? So you actually have 7 and then 10. And then who becomes after the United States Constitution was written in September 1787, who becomes the first U.S. president under the United States Constitution? It's George Washington. Okay? So you see that there was 7 chairmen, and that 8th chairman becomes part of the 10 presidents under the Articles of Confederation, and then the United States Constitution will have 1 president, and then it'll go on, right? Until now it's number what? 45. It's number 1, and now it's number 45. Okay? So let's see, we're studying Daniel 11. We see that there's 7 chairmen, and the 8th is part of the 10 presidents of the Articles of Confederation, and then George Washington becomes the first president under the U.S. Constitution. Okay, what's the characteristics of George Washington? What was he famous for? He was a real estate tycoon. He was the richest president of all the presidents up until who? Up until Trump. There's no president that is richer than George Washington up until Donald Trump, right? And how he became rich? Because he was a real estate tycoon. All right? Okay. So now we have we have Donald Trump, right? And he is the 45th president. This is rich, and he's a real estate tycoon. This is rich, and he's a real estate tycoon. Okay. All right. Now, the 45th president will then eventually change, because as America goes down, who will rise up? The United Nations. And the United Nations is symbolized by what? 10. The 10 kings, right? It's symbolized by the 10 kings, right? But when these 10 kings join together, 3 of them are going to become the ruler of the threefold union, right? And they will then rule the whole world, right? This threefold union will cause the world to wander after the beast, right? So what do you see there? So from that 10, 3 will rule the others 7. So now you see here a chiastic mirror. 7, 10, 1, 1, 10, 7. And this president is the richest. Up until this president, he's the richest of them all, right? And look at, this is Daniel 11. How many verses are in Daniel 11? From verse 1 until verse 45. And this 45th president, he's going to go into 2 wars. He's going to go into the Raphia War and the Panium War. The Raphia War is the 4th Syrian War, where prophetically he goes against Ptolemy IV. And the 5th Syrian War, he's going to go against Ptolemy V. Raphia and Panium is the 4th and the 5th. Now, do you think those are all just coincidences? You know, there's a pattern to it, right? Yeah. Okay. All right. How are we? We're doing what time? Okay, I'm going to keep going a little bit more. For the ships of Chittim shall come against him. Therefore he shall be grieved and return, and have indignation against the holy covenant. So shall he do, and he shall even return, and have intelligence with them that forsake the holy covenant. Right? Okay, for the ships of Chittim. This is all symbolic prophetic language. And we got to know what this means. All right, what's the ships of Chittim? Yeah, we know it's economic. Ships is economic. Okay, but what's the ships of Chittim that comes against the king of the north? We know the ships of Chittim is a what kind of power? It's a trumpet power. Okay, which trumpet is it? No, it's the second war, because it's the Vandals, right? It's the Vandals. Right. The prophetic narrative still has reference to the power which has been the subject of prophecy from the 16th verse, namely Rome. What were the ships of Chittim that came against this power? And when was this movement made? What country or power is meant by Chittim? From the land of Chittim it is revealed to them. Cato gives the same locality to Chittim, namely the coast and islands of Mediterranean. And the mind is carried to the testimony of Jerome to the definite and celebrated city situated in the land that is Carthage. Where is Carthage? North Africa, right? So the ships of Chittim will attack militarily through the waters. And that's when the ships are being attacked, it symbolizes economy. Now, we know that Carthage now sits right at where is this now? This is Tunisia. What is Tunisia now? It's a Muslim country. The ships of Chittim comes from a Muslim country. All right? A Muslim country is going to come and cause economic downfall to the United States. Has that happened? That happened at 9/11. We know that happened at 9/11. Therefore, he shall be grieved and return. Okay. Therefore, he shall be grieved and return and have indignation against the Holy Covenant. Indignation against the Holy Covenant, that is the Holy Scriptures. The book of the covenant, a revolution of this nature was accomplished in Rome. The Herodites, Goths, and Vandals who conquered Rome embraced the Arian faith. All right? The Herodites, Goths, and Vandals, right? They became Arians and what were they called? They were called heretics. Because of that, Justinian, he had to choose somebody to be the corrector of heretics, the corrector of those Arian barbarians. All right. The Bible soon came to be regarded as a dangerous book that should not be read by common people. But all questions and disputes were to submitted to the Pope. So the Pope now controls what you can read. Thus was indignity heaped upon God's word. And the emperors of Rome, the eastern division of which still continued, had intelligence or connived with the Church of Rome. So Justinian from the east, the Byzantine Empire, still connived with the west, the Church of Rome, which had forsaken the covenant and constituted the great apostasy for the purpose of putting down the Arians, which is heresy. The man of sin was raised to presumption throne by the defeat of the Arian Goths, right? The papacy was lifted up, right? After the Goths, the Arians were defeated, who then held possession of Rome in 538. Okay? Right? So they will return and have indignation against the Holy Covenant, right? The Holy Covenant is the indignation that happened when they made the papacy the corrector of heretics. All right. For the ships of Chittim shall come against him, right? See here, he shall be grieved and return and have indignation against the Holy Covenant, right? And he shall even return and have intelligence with them that forsake the Holy Covenant. In verse 11, verse 28, he shall return into his land with great riches, and his heart shall be against the Holy Covenant. See? Against the Holy Covenant. Here, against the Holy Covenant. And he shall do his exploits. So this is talking about making an alliance against God's people. All right? So we know the Goths. The Goths came prophetically at 1989. What the Goths did also is they compromised with Rome. And then they actually even worked for Rome, because then the Goths were used by Rome to conquer the other barbarians. So you can see that they actually compromised here. All right, there's a compromise here, and we know at 1989 there's a compromise because America then actually worked for the papacy to conquer Russia. Right? Now, what about the ships of Chittim? That's the Vandals. What happened with the Vandals? It came from Tunisia, which is now a Muslim country, right? So the Vandals came at 9/11 and took down America's economy. Since that time, it started a big economic, downturn. Okay.
So God's represent Russia?
No. The Goths are those who actually came and then eventually. The Goths are those who eventually came and compromised right? So they came and compromised, right? But then they were used to conquer other barbarians, right? Those were the Goths. Then the Vandals here are the ones that came through with the ships, which is economic, right? And these are the Huns. The Huns, where do the Huns come from? Southern Russia, which is also Islamic countries now, right? And then these are the Herolites. Herolites come from Russia, right? So we see that all these histories now have a certain meaning, right? Okay. Now Justinian says we got to get rid of these heretics. So he's now going to make indignation against the whole. He's going to go and make indignation against the Holy Covenant by lifting up a corrector of heretics, right? And to have intelligence with them, right? To have intelligence, and now he'll do his exploits. Right? So Justinian, that's at the Sunday Law. And Justinian actually in 533 was when he made the Pope a corrector of heretics. And in 538, he eventually took out the Ostrogoths out of Rome. And in 538 also is when in France they enacted a Sunday law, where now they say you are not allowed to work on the Sunday. Okay. So this is when they made a union, right? Justinian now makes a union, right? They make intelligence, right? Make an intelligence. They make a threefold union at the Sunday law, right? And then they will rule for 1 hour, because the dragon and the beast will rule for 1 hour. Okay. All right. Let me just. All right. Right. Before we go to, we'll stop here. But before we eventually will try to wrap it up. I don't know where we can wrap it up next week. But before we finish, we are going to go to the last parts of verse 31 to 39. But Ellen White said something very important when it comes to this juncture of Daniel 11. We have no time to lose. Troublous times are before us. The world is stirred with the spirit of war. Soon the scene of trouble spoken of in the prophecies will take place. The prophecy in this 11th of Daniel has nearly reached its complete fulfillment. Much of the history that has taken place in fulfillment of this prophecy, will be repeated. Wow. You know, we've been studying and we see that much of it is being repeated in our time, right? Right? Since Ellen White says you better study Daniel 11 because this is going to be repeated, okay? In the 30th verse, a power if spoken of that shall be grieved and return and have indignation against the Holy Covenant. So shall he do, and he shall even return and have intelligence with them that forsake the Holy Covenant. We know this is talking about it was talking about Rome, right? This is talking about Rome. And remember, these will be repeated. And then she quotes verse 31 to 36. Verse 31 to 36 is repeated. But we know now that, a lot of all the other verses we have now studied have taken place and will be repeated. Scenes similar to these described in these words will take place. We see evidence that Satan is fast obtaining the control of human minds who have not the fear of God before them. Let all read and understand the prophecies of this book. For we are now entering upon the time of trouble spoken of in Daniel 12, verse 1 to 4. Right? What she tells us that we all have to read and understand the prophecies of Daniel 11. For we are now entering upon the time of trouble. Right? This is what she's telling us. So this is why we're studying Daniel 11. Yeah? And too bad we had some technical difficulties, so I'm going to have to edit this video a little bit afterwards to kind of put it together. But we'll end it right here for now, because we'll see whether we can finish it next week. And we know that all these prophecies are being fulfilled right now. I mean, are being opened up right now. Because it's going to tell us what is going to happen as we enter upon the time of trouble, spoken of in Daniel 12. And Ellen White said, let all read and understand the prophecies of Daniel 11. All right? And that is the more sure word of prophecy.